Mark Burrick. Here at Bitter at Beach, we have camps, clinics for players, camps and clinics for coaches. We have online programs where you can learn beach volleyball as a player, as a beginner, as a coach. If you ever want to take a course with us, you are more than welcome. And we have a slew of opportunities for you to learn how to dive deeper into the game. And today we have a very special guest, a friend from early in my volleyball career where we crossed paths and ran. And it's so cool to see her succeeding and making her rounds around the country between indoor and beach volleyball. She is currently the assistant coach at Grand Canyon University in her hometown. And I'd love to welcome on to the show Abra. What's up? How are you?
Fantastic. Excited to be here. Thanks for asking me to be on the show.
Yeah, of course. Of course. It's nice to I told you off camera you actually coached indoor at
Mhm.
the college version of my high school. So St. Francis Prep
Mhm.
in Queens, New York, it graduates to St. Francis College in
Mhm.
Brooklyn, and that's where you got your a few years coaching indoor there with a number of successful runs. So what brought you from living in Phoenix and then heading on over to New York where you were coaching? And then I'd like to really dive into all of the different places and clubs that you've coached throughout, kind
Okay.
of like a journeywoman of volleyball coaching.
Well, how long you got? Because I've been a lot of places. I was in San Diego for a few years. Was playing kind of on the national tour for beach volleyball. I met my now husband over there, and he while he was training for the 2020 nope 2012. That's how old I am. 2012 Olympics as a rower. After the 2012 Olympics, he really wanted to make another run. I was doing fine at beach volleyball. I liked it, but I was at a good like kind of pause point in my career.
Okay.
So we decided to move with him over to Princeton, New Jersey, where the men's national team for U.S. rowing was relocated to.
Okay.
Um, and I went with him and just started coaching over there, and then was lucky enough to get my break at St. Francis College.
Wait. What do you mean just started coaching? Like you just walked over there and be like, I know how to play volleyball. I'm going to coach at Princeton.
Well, like I said, how long you got for the podcast? Originally started in NorCal when I was in college. Spent 2 years at NorCal Juniors coaching there. Went back to Arizona for my master's and coached at Arizona Sky Juniors, and this is all indoor. Coached there for a few years while I was getting my master's to become a teacher. Was a teacher and coached at a local high school in Arizona. Then decided I wanted to play beach volleyball. So then went over to San Diego, coached at San Diego City College, coached at Wave Volleyball Club, coached a little bit of beach for Beach Dig, Cindy Phillips. I'm not sure if she's still running that, but she's awesome. And then met my husband, and then again, fast forward to New Jersey. I was at Princeton as an assistant. I was at Rider as an assistant for a few months, and then got the job at St. Francis College. All while my husband was training for the 2016 Olympic Games.
Cool. Were these positions that you applied to? How did you apply? Did you know they were open? Did you just knock on a door and be like, hey, I know volleyball. I'm going to be living here for a little while. Let me check it out. Or was there an invite or a connection situation?
I would say most of them are. I mean, you know the volleyball community. It's very connected.
Pretty
It's
small, pretty tight.
large, but it's small.
Yeah.
So I would say each job I got because I knew someone. My very
Okay.
first coaching job at NorCal, it's because the coach of my college team coached at that club. So she recommended me. Wave Volleyball Club, Kevin McCullough, I knew from college.
Great dude.
And yeah, cool dude. And he gave me a recommendation to Ed Machado, who was the director at the time.
Okay.
And Ed, that was actually one of my scarier interviews. He's like, "Oh, welcome to the interview. Do you have your tennis shoes on? You're going to be playing volleyball." I'm like, "What?"
Huh?
Yeah, exactly. He had to test my skills. I went out there and had to pass and set and hit and serve. And he's like, "Okay, you seem like a good enough volleyball player."
Huh?
So it was terrifying.
Do you think,
Uh,
I mean, what if he did that to Russ Rose?
I cannot speak personally to Russ Rose's skills. Maybe they're great, maybe they're not. I don't know. But he did it
Huh,
to me, and it was terrifying.
that's
But
funny. You're gonna try out
yeah,
physically. Do you
yeah.
I've had a conversation or a thought. I kind of think it's maybe not mandatory, but a monster advantage for juniors. At the very
Mhm,
least, juniors who are first like getting started and need to know what things look like. Um,
mhm,
I think there needs to be a young-ish coach there,
mhm,
enough to demo skills. I
mhm,
don't think you really need that when there's, you get to the advanced level, or certainly like not college. Like all the demos are fine. You're
mhm.
done. The technique should already be built. But do you think that that should be a mandatory thing, that you need someone on staff that can actually do it? Or can you work easily around it without needing the visual demonstrator?
Um, I I think there's benefits and drawbacks to both ways. I've certainly found a lot of success at every level at being able to physically demonstrate what needs to be done,
Mm,
even if it's in a more closed scenario. I've gone through 3 different seasons pregnant, and had to find ways to demonstrate, and I could do it. 8 months, 9 months pregnant. It was very slow motion, but um, you know, I think I guess. I would summarize it by saying I think you can demonstrate even if you're not young,
okay.
even if you're not in great shape still,
Yeah.
or AKA playing shape. 'Cause like I said, 8, 9 months pregnant, I was still able to, like in a close scenario, demonstrate. Maybe I wasn't jumping to attack, but I could stand and, show what a cut shot looked like.
Yeah. Yeah. Have
So,
you ever seen any coaches that they actually didn't have any of the skills, they just knew how it worked? I'm thinking of one person in my head particularly who was a high school coach. Got
mhm,
no shot he could play volleyball or have any sort of decent arm swing, or like I don't know
mhm.
how he ran his practices, and he had a lot of wacky ideas. Um,
Yeah.
but there certainly wasn't demoing anything. But
Mhm,
he had a decent program. I think that they were second in the league. You know,
mhm.
um, is there a way for somebody who has not played, has not developed a skill? Can they be successful just by studying the game and learning how it should be done, and then helping their players?
I mean, I think you can. I think it's just a higher barrier to entry.
Yeah,
If you're not able to physically demonstrate it yourself, then you should bet next best thing is having a player or an assistant who could demonstrate it for you. If you don't have a player or an assistant who can demonstrate it for you, then you're gonna have to be really good at utilizing things like video or finding pictures of people doing it correctly.
mm, okay,
Utilizing whatever tools you have to try to show how it should be done correctly. Because at the end of the day, if you not everyone learns the same way.
true.
As a coach, if I'm trying to if I'm trying to teach you how to do, a thumb up cut shot, I'm going to explain it one way and maybe you don't get it that way. And then I'm going to have to use another way to try to get you to do it. And then if you
Mm,
don't figure it out that way, another way. You got to have a lot of tools in your tool belt in order to teach a multitude of people, because what works for you isn't going to work for someone else, isn't going to work for someone else.
true.
So if you're not able to demonstrate it yourself, then you're going to have to find someone who can.
Well, that's a good point. You talked about assistant coach there, and that there might be different roles behind people. So, assistant coach can be a very vague role, because I know that a lot of head coaches have very different skill sets and very different needs. So,
Mhm,
as somebody who came from a head coach position for
mhm,
indoor and is now transitioned to the title of assistant coach,
mhm.
what roles are you specifically in charge of for Grand Canyon University?
Um, I am mostly in charge of, I would say the scouting is one I've definitely taken a lead on.
Okay.
Kristen knows I love my numbers, I love my stats, I love my little Excel sheets.
Do
I
you
do
use
a lot
any
of.
specific apps for that?
I don't. Just Excel.
Hmm.
I
What columns do you have?
Columns? It
Yeah.
depends.
Like how do you
Oh
stack?
gosh, we're gonna get down a rabbit hole here.
We give tools to these people, like if you're telling me, okay, give me 5 of your most important columns that you use, like when you're filling them in, what you're tracking, what the most important things that you could do.
When it comes to a game, ooh, I would say, well, we can go one of two directions here. I would say about once a year, I do like a huge statistical study on some aspect of the game,
Okay.
and then utilize that as a way to train the team to have success. For example, 2 years ago, my whole theory as far as beach, indoors, but definitely beach. I don't think coaches focus enough on serving. I think they focus probably enough on passing, but not on the serving aspect of it. And to me, those are probably the two most important aspects of the game is your serve and your pass. If you're winning those 2 points, those two skill sets, you're usually winning the game.
Hmm.
So I did a really big study on that and had some interesting conclusions.
What were
Uh,
they? Will you share them?
yeah, of course. What else am I doing?
Are these your money making black book? Like, like, no, actually,
No,
it's coming out in my book. No, I'm not going to share with any other coaches.
well, the really neat aspect of me doing these studies is that Kristen, the head coach at GCU, I present it to her and get her thoughts about it, and then she allows me to utilize that as part of our training. And we've used it as kind of like a driving force. And I thought that we went from a pretty average serving team my first year to I thought we were one of the best serving teams in the country this last season. A little biased, but got
How
to
do you
throw that
measure
out
that?
there.
How do you measure what a good surfing team is?
I would measure a good serving team as that you're getting the other team out of system. It's to me, serving is a war of attrition. It's not about getting aces. It's not about point scoring. Aces and point scoring are a byproduct of consistent, tough serving.
Okay.
What we did with my statistical study is we quantified what is consistent, tough serving. The consistent part is easy. It's in or it's out.
Yeah.
Like, are you consistent? I think USA Volleyball indoors, Karch Karai aims for 90%. I'd say we're probably
90%
more,
in.
yeah, 90% toughen in,
Do you
because I
think the
believe
same
it's,
applies to just like side thing? Do you think the same percentages apply for men's and women's?
no. I think in the men's game, indoors, and I think in the beach game, because the side out percentages are so much higher, I think that you need to go for your serve more. I think you need to be more okay with 80%.
Okay.
So
The
we're okay.
interesting, the women's beach volleyball in a couple of the Olympics, the
Mhm,
top teams sided
mhm,
out at a higher clip than the
mhm.
men's teams, than the men's top teams.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it's not across the board, and it's not at every level, so not even down to like the 17ths and 25ths.
Mhm,
But the top, and I kind of looked at that. I'm like, okay, they're not getting points when they're ripping.
mhm,
Like guys can rip from 10, 11, 12 feet off and still come close to overpowering somebody. Still a huge
mhm,
advantage for the defender. But just the nature of how how much lower the contact of the ball is
mhm,
to the ground, female
mhm,
defenders actually have less time to chase down shots.
mhm,
So it's playing defense against a quality shot, no matter what, is way tougher on a women's net. That cut shot is
mhm,
devastating in the high line because it doesn't need to be uh, traveling as high as a
mhm,
men's one. Should be more efficient. I think women should be like more efficient shooters, but then it just comes down to that upper body strength and
mhm.
how frequent the peels happen in the women's game.
Definitely. And I did my study I did last season was efficiency of attacking. What is the best shot in
So
beach
wait.
volleyball?
We got to go back to serving.
I know I'm all over the place. I
What's
might have peaked too much with my caffeine intake. Uh,
You're just so excited to be in a silent room for the first time in 5 years.
I know. Oh my gosh. So serving. Sorry. What I did.
What's an
Um,
if what did you find was an efficient serve? So you said consistency. But is there a specific angle to angle, a location on the service line that has the most advantage when you serve a spot? What did you find there?
so I watched about 5 matches at our ones, 5 at our twos, 5 threes, 4s, and 5s. I found at the ones, consistently, it did not matter where the serve came from. The only thing that really mattered was that the passer had to take more than one step to get the ball. If you were able to serve a ball that a passer had to take more than one step to get to, aka out of serve receive, then their side out percentage went down like 200 to 300 points.
Whoa.
Yep.
Now, I battle this with players all the time who have the notion of, hey, I need you to serve high deep. So they make the ball land deep, but it still crosses the player in their sweet spot. I said, no, you need to learn how to rainbow a serve, how to like send it high and deep. So can you get a player to take more than 2 steps to the ball without changing the depth, like the short serve and where it crosses them? Or can you get them to take 2 steps by serving, pinging the ball, but just in the middle or down the line? Is there enough space there?
I think I don't know that I have a great answer for that, other than I would say when we work on serving, we work on every type of serve,
Okay.
because you don't know what kind of bad passing angle someone has. For me personally, I have a very distinct bad passing angle. I'm not going to tell you which one because I'd like to play in a tournament this year.
You better watch out when I come for you in co-ed.
But every person has a bad passing angle. You just have to figure out what it is, and
Okay.
that's either by watching, maybe elements are a factor. I'm a big proponent for you need to be competent from every zone along the back line and from every angle. You need to be competent at line to line. You need to be competent at line to middle, angle to angle. You need to be able to serve a short serve straight down the line, that kind of hard angle short serve.
Okay, so you wouldn't
Because
have somebody master one location and rep out exactly from there, kind of like an indoor where it's like you serve from one spot and you have your angles or your best serve from there. You like to change their angles and their locations based on where somebody's likely to shank or get aced or have a bad pass.
Yeah,
Okay.
we try to utilize conditions, and we try to be competent at every serve, because just like attacking, you never know when the moment is going to call for you to do a specific thing.
Mm.
And if you're not confident, if the moment calls for a line to line serve and you're not confident in it, now you've lost the opportunity to better your percentages at earning the point.
I had a player in Norway when I was a player coach there, head coach and player of a pro team. Doesn't work well, but did it. One of my players, he had an energy problem. He got exhausted very quickly, even though he was in shape. It was a disease, but he talked to me one time. He said, what do I do about serving? Because I have this, I have that. I have a jump float, I have a float, I have a pretty good jump topspin. And when the conclusion that I gave him, and I kind of still think it would be valid, but you have a limited number of hours you can put in compared to everyone else because you have to cut your exercise at a certain point. So I said, develop one weapon at 100% and just master that, so you don't have to worry about spending the time and changing contacts and mastering each location and short, deep, high, everything like that. And we settled on that. But I think if you do have the time to be able to practice a bunch of serves, it can be good. I wonder if it prevents you from mastering one type of serve, or are you just mastering the serve strategy by being able to locate at 90% instead of 100% where you're serving? Any kind of thoughts on that?
I would say I like the general thought, in like you said, in general. Anytime you can master something in the game of volleyball, that's really important. You always want to maximize what you're good at. But the flip side of that is if you're maximizing something you're great at, you got to find ways to improve what you're not great at.
Yeah.
I would say yes. But the benefit of serving is that you can get a ton of reps in. It's one of the few skills in the beach game where you can get a ton of reps in a very short amount of time. We, again, in my very biased opinion, we hugely improved as a serving team in 1 year, simply by dedicating 5 to 10 minutes of practice to it.
Okay.
And that's nothing, right? Most drills, you 5 to 10 minutes and you get a couple reps in,
Yeah.
right? In the beach game, because it's just so physically taxing.
Mhm.
But serving in 5 to 10 minutes, you're going to serve 20 balls, 30 balls, 40 balls. You can
Mhm.
serve a lot of balls in that amount of time.
True.
So I just think it's one of those skills from a time management standpoint you can really maximize.
I like that.
But to your point, anytime you can be great at something, you should work on being great at that.
Hmm. So back to the deep versus short.
Okay.
Are you training your players like consistently to get out of system? You want to move 2 steps. Is there
Mhm.
default that you're saying we're going middle to middle because that'll be a big move for both players, or we're going sideline to sideline to get them to move? Or are you really focusing on depth of the court, the rainbow versus the short to get the passer on the move?
Mhm. Um, I would say in general, we focus on deeper serves,
High deep or
regardless,
flat?
flat and deep.
Okay.
We're looking for fast, low net clearance because that's how you can really get your velocity on the serve.
Mhm.
Because it's a time function, right? As you mentioned in the women's game, it's a lower net, right? So we have the ability to really zip that serve in. Versus the men's game, it's a higher net. And I
So
don't know about you personally, but I would much rather pass the ball on a men's net than a women's net.
hell yeah, we have it so easy.
Yeah. You said it, not me. Um, but if you have the ability to get the ball fast and deep to a zone, yeah, it's my philosophy that that's the better serve to go for. High and deep, I think there's certainly a time and place for that. You got to run up blocker. You got a lot of wind you're dealing with, and you want that ball to sit up there and dance for more. Those are times that we've certainly utilized that higher deep serve. But I would say we tend to focus more on flat and hard, and then having it land in that last 3 feet of the court, irregardless of whether that's sideline, middle, or just like straight at their chest.
Do you know what there's I don't know his name and I probably should, but the German Olympic coach when Brinkman, shoot, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name right now. But when Germany won the gold medals for
Mhm,
men's and the women's, it was same coach who
mhm,
was kind of leading the way in the strategy. And the big part of what he said was we don't go for max velocity. He had
mhm,
apparently, and so much so, this is a secret among them, that their national team blocker, Alex Walkenhorst, he wouldn't
mhm.
give me the answer. He slept in my house, like right here, and he wouldn't tell me what all the German national players know, but they determined an exact velocity that the
Mhm.
Mikasa ball floats the most at.
Ooh.
And so he had them serve at that, which means that they would actually slow the serves down a little bit
Mhm,
when wind was in their face, and when the
mhm,
wind's behind you, really it doesn't float at all.
mhm.
And he would even go as far as like kind of measuring the air and looking at somebody and going, "Why are you float serving?" And he's like, "We've been practicing this all the time." He goes, "You can't feel the air. It's moist out here. The ball's not
Uh-huh.
going to float. It's going to be weighted. You need to jump
Mhm,
topspin." And he paid attention to serving that much. And if you watch German teams serve,
mhm,
they have an emphasis like you. It's like
mhm.
big emphasis on serving. So do you go have you ever thought of that, of the exact win versus ball velocity, or do you just go as hard as possible where it stays in?
I would say we try to tailor it more to what our girls are capable of. We have a few girls that have great contact, just consistently, really just pop that ball perfectly every time, and have great float. And those kids we default to, hey, less velocity, more float. At the end of the day, I would personally rather have more float and less velocity,
Mm,
as long as we have that lower net clearance.
sure.
Um, we have a few kids that struggle a little bit with that consistent float. So they're ones that we say, okay, let's go a little bit more towards velocity because we're not getting that dance, that movement, that unpredictability on the ball. So we might as well just try and get it to the zone quicker.
Cool. If you had to pick one serve to live and die by, like This is the one serve that I'm going to tell everybody walking into a match blind.
Yeah.
You don't know what team you're coaching, but you're coaching them.
Mhm.
You've never seen them play or anything, and you don't know what team you're playing.
Mhm.
What serve do you serve for the first 14 points? And you have to pick one location from where and to where.
Mhm.
No wind.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I tell everyone on my team this actually. Personal favorite serve, I always do it first serve of the match. Shouldn't tell anyone that because I'm trying to play this year.
Still works. Still works.
Middle to middle, like line to line. I stand in the middle of the court. I line up right in between them, and then I serve it fast, hard, with float right down the middle. Because, in my opinion, inevitably, no matter who you are, at the beginning of a match, everyone's just a little bit nervous. So if you can just drive it fast up the middle, that's a great time, first ball, to get that easy point. And if I have to do it for 14 points, so be it. That's my serve.
I like it. Huh. Yeah, especially when it's equal. There's no game plan, right? You don't know exactly who, and that's a good time for it. And I know that a bunch of people actually have gone with that. They like the middle serve and causing a quick question in the beginning. Personally, short sideline for a right side.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
love the
Especially in the men's
middle to
game.
sideline, making them dive forward and outside so that they have to move on two planes.
Mhm,
They usually got to take a knee. It's a little
mhm,
bit dangerous if you do it slow because we're so exposed to on two nowadays.
mhm. Yeah.
And it's like you have to have an on two game now. But it's such a troublesome to go forward and low and reach. If I'm blind and I know that 99% of the world doesn't have the footwork
Mhm,
to get into that and to get out of it,
mhm,
that serve is it's how I can. I'm not going to say sleep at local open tournaments, but
mhm,
if I want to just chill through pool play, I'm going
mhm,
short right sideline
mhm,
almost all day, just because by nature of me seeing their footwork after that serve, that's what I'm literally looking for. Serve,
mhm,
where's their footwork? Oh, they don't have footwork. They don't have spacing. All right,
mhm,
we're going to put this on repeat because they're not going to get their own hitting distance.
mhm.
So that's my favorite serve, but I like your middle serve, making that question early on.
Yeah, well, I like doing it from the middle too, so it's not clear whose middle it is. Like I stand in the middle of the court, serve directly down the middle to their middle. Everyone's like, "Oh, my middle," but in this scenario, whose is it? No one knows.
I like that.
But I liked your point. I like the short serve. It brings up a funny point because I never short serve
Huh.
personally.
John
I'm
Mayer
a,
would hate you.
no, ugh,
he's
and we've lost
he's
to
like the
John
one
Mayer the last 2 years. Ugh.
oh he says the one skill that all volleyball players like need to work on or could be more valuable for all of their games. He goes, short serve.
No, he's right. That was something like we didn't do enough of. And this is my fault. I'm in charge of serving. We didn't do enough of this fall. And then I was watching our games and we had a few kids with really good short serves and they'd use it at the right time. And as long as I did it at the right time and had a decent level of execution, it was automatic bad pass,
Mhm.
easy ball on our side. And so it made me rethink like, dang it, we're gonna have to figure out how to get people to short serve. So we started adding that to our repertoire probably about February, March.
Mhm.
And saw a lot of success from that too.
And it can be tricky, right? Because sometimes you can see a good pass and think you didn't do your job. But
Mhm,
if you don't think one layer deeper of, well, then what happened to the hitter? Did they
mhm,
get the same approach that they like? Did they get the set that they liked? Even if they got a kill, was
mhm,
it comfortable? Was it uncomfortable? They rushed off balance. I think people judge a good serve based on good pass or bad pass, and
mhm,
there can be another layer of rhythm, spacing, vision, and shot selection. Do you change
mhm,
your entire swing selection when you
mhm,
get a serve? That doesn't mean you shoot or swing. Sometimes it does, right?
mhm,
But can you do you become an only hard cross and high line hitter
mhm.
when you're serve short? Interesting things to look at, I think.
Definitely. We certainly do that. We consider serve location when we're trying to limit or trap certain shots as well. For example, if someone's on the right side and they're a big, thumb up attacker, we're going to consider serving them more middle to try to bring them into the court and cut off that thumb up attack that they like to do. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Okay. So, and by thumb up, you mean so the right-handed right side player likes to hit cross court, basically.
Yes.
So you try to drag them into the middle with the
Mhm,
serve,
mhm.
and then they have a smaller area to hit into with that cross court. So their
Right.
favorite shot is they have to be more pinched with it.
Mhm. And then it makes defense easier. Then maybe you can pull your block out of there and get their easier back to line shot. And now you have your down defender on their best stuff. And their best stuff is, instead of being, this large of a court, now it's that large.
Hmm,
And that's not perfect, but it's certainly a strategy we consider using when we're back at the service line as well.
I like that. Yeah, that's smart. Do you, when you know that somebody wants to hit hard cross,
Mhm.
do you run a straight up two on them where you have the blocker obviously take away their best swing? Do you let your defender take it, or do you try to bait them into swinging their favorite by running of like a four block, where they dive into the angle?
I mean, at the level we're at with the teams that we're, trying to beat, the top 10 teams in the country, because I think this last 2 years we've kind of been in that like kind of 5 to 10 range. Um, it's kind of a multifaceted problem. Depends on the hitter. I would say you either, generally speaking, if you want to stop someone's best stuff, you're not going to consistently do it with a block. You're going to do it with your defender. You can limit it with a block. You can jump in and get a few points here and there with that blocker. But chances are, you talked about the hard cross.
Mhm.
If someone's really good at hitting the hard cross, they're probably pretty good at shooting it too. So if you put that blocker in on it, then they're probably just going to shoot over you if you don't have your defender there.
Okay.
Um, so what we've done in the past, we've doubled up. Um, we've had both players move in and just really given them,
I
so
love
maybe
that.
the
Why don't
blocker.
more players do that? I think so many people are they believe that the defender and the blocker have to be on opposite sides of the court, right? And then it's like it's why some people don't need to see the defender to get
Mhm.
to a certain level. They can
Mhm.
just see where the blocker is and hit over the blocker without even paying attention to the defender. When if the defender sits middle or you double up two or three times a match, no hitter expects that.
Mhm.
They're like, no way, they're both going to be on the left side the whole point. So you
Yeah.
question yourself.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think we played every single team who ended up in the top 10 this year at Division One, and there were precious few teams and precious few individuals who ever doubled up. And that was a lot of the feedback we gave our players, which is, I think it's the setter's job to look through the net and see where the defender is.
Mm,
I think it's the attacker's job to see the block and know that 95% of the time, if they see hands here, there is no one behind those hands. So
mm.
it's their job to see the hands and swing hard around or shoot over, knowing that with confidence they should be able to do it, and there's not going to be anyone behind the hands.
Mm.
And I can speak as a player, that's what I look for. I go up to hit, it's pretty hard to see that defender and see that movement. Things really have to kind of align. I have to have a good pass, I have to have a good set, I have to see, the play in front of me. But at the end of the day, if I see hands, usually not someone behind it.
I've been redesigning my thoughts on offensive strategy for a
Mhm,
couple of years. And the conclusion that I've come to at this point in my coaching and playing career is that I'm not going to react to somebody. I think some players jump, wait to see what's open,
mhm,
and then swing for the opening, especially lookers. I was a big like long look for a
mhm,
lot of my career. I take a shorter looker. I actually open my peripherals a little bit more now. But um I would react. I would wait to see what they're doing and then hit the opposite.
mhm,
And now I'm in no way that.
mhm,
I have a swing that I'm going for that point, and then I have an off switch Like,
Okay.
if they do the thing that will stop that swing, then I have my second swing in mind,
Mhm.
and then I'll have a third one. And of course, if something's so easy and so obvious, then I'll put that down.
Mhm.
But how are you teaching your players on offense? What's the mental sequence that they're going through? Does it come down to a game plan where you say, "Hey, this girl sucks at digging hard driven balls, so we're going to swing at everything," or do
Mhm.
you say, "You're great at swinging, and we're still working on your shooting," or however you want to say it nicely? Uh, so make sure you hit. What mental process do you want your players to go through offensively?
Um, I mean, that's a tough one. This is a lot of answers. For example, there was one game I was coaching. I was coaching our fours blocker. Her name's Krista. She's wonderful. And she
They
really
all are.
high line was so open. Like we could have grabbed the ball, stood there, and then thrown it over the high line, and it would have scored. Like, so open. But she just, for whatever reason, couldn't do it. She just couldn't get that high line. She couldn't
Mm.
get her thumb up, just wrap her hand around the ball, couldn't get the clear. But what she was really good at doing was hitting hard angle and hitting middle back.
Ooh.
So at a certain point, because she wasn't scoring on the high line, because she just wasn't able to do it at a high enough level,
Oh,
I said,
okay, so she
okay.
was missing. So it's not that she wasn't going for it, she was just kind of,
Yeah.
like, flubbing it in her hands or not getting the quite
Yeah.
fast enough, quick enough contact.
Mhm.
Okay, so she
Mhm.
was attempting it, okay,
Yes, she was very coachable. She
cool.
just
Just
could
missing it
not
that
execute
day.
it
Okay.
for many reasons, could not execute it at that moment. So I finally just told her, whatever situation you're in, whatever your best swing is, whether that's hard angle or middle back, just choose whatever one you're going to execute best in the moment and do that, because it's a high enough level swing that they're going to have a very difficult time digging it.
Regardless of what the other team's doing?
Hmm.
Huh.
And we won the match with only her swinging middle back or hard angle.
Hmm.
If the set was a little inside, she hit hard angle. If the set was in front of her, she hit middle back. And she had the clearance over the block. The block wasn't as big as she was, so she was able to swing middle back even if the blocker stayed.
Hmm.
Um, and if the blocker pulled, well, she just wasn't really hitting at her. She was she was hitting the middle back or hard angle, and like I said, it was a high enough level swing, and she's putting enough pace on it to a good location that we ended up pulling out the match.
That's
Um,
we had, Sam Pedlow, the Canadian Olympian,
okay.
on our podcast when it wasn't a podcast, like 4 years ago. We
Mhm,
just interviewed him for a webinar, and he said the exact same thing.
mhm,
He said, "I know what I'm good at, and I think more players need
mhm,
to know what they're good at. And when you get into a rut or you're not getting a few kills in a row, the first thing that he checks in with himself is, have I done my best swing in the last 3 points? Have I gone
mhm,
for and executed my best swing, regardless of what the other team's doing?" And a lot
mhm,
of the times he said when he was in a rut, the answer was no. He wasn't doing the thing that he was fantastic at.
mhm,
And so he would go back to that and he would establish that. And he said that, people think that AVP and FIVB players have all these shots. Usually they're just great at two shots,
mhm,
and all the rest is kind of good enough.
mhm,
Whereas a lot of, I guess, BA, AA players, they try to have every location, everything. And if you don't do something, like we talked about, like mastering one skill,
mhm,
if you don't have something that you've established or repped out, you're going to be mediocre at
mhm,
all of them, instead of like finding a good swing. And it's funny that you guys said the exact same thing.
mhm.
What are you great at? Do it. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter what the other team is doing. Like, do it.
Oh, for sure. It's a points game, right? At the end of the day, you're trying to get more points before they get enough points. And any time in this sport in which you can be great at something, you should do that thing. The flip side of that is defensively, we try to teach our girls, okay, identify what the other team is great at. And from a mental, physical, and point scoring standpoint, you got to try and find a way to limit what they're great at. because that's generally speaking how they're going to try to win the match.
True.
But our girls, I mean, when it comes down to it, you really need 3 swings in this game in order to be successful. You need a high line, you need a cut shot, and you need a swing down the middle. If you're
You need a high line in
Yeah, I think
maybe
so.
they're
I mean,
not
look, we won
peeling
that
as
match,
much as they
but
think
that
they are.
was what?
Maybe in the college game, like, women aren't peeling as much as I think they are, but I feel like cut shot and hard middle are, like, for the women's game, from
Mhm,
what I've seen of it and the frequency of peeling, cut
mhm,
shot, I think, has to be number 1 for the women's game. I think it's a devastating swing on
mhm,
the women's net, and I feel like that's why Brazil runs their defense the way they do. They step into the pocket hard, and they just leave
mhm,
their hands up so that they can take
mhm,
away all hard driven because,
mhm,
they're not gonna get their glasses taken off too frequently,
mhm.
and then they've cut off basically the cut shot, so then the only option now they have is the high line, and if you peel on that, should be set. So I think the cut shot is 100% mandatory. But is the high line
Do you wanna
second?
hear an
Is
interesting
is it
stat?
second place? I would love to.
So last summer, I did a whole offensive theory.
Mm,
Again, watched just a ton of footage. This is our matches, our level, right? So that's about top 10 Division One. Statistically, and I statted what was the most effective attack between option, high over the block, irregardless of what the block did.
that means they
Add
could
a
peel?
Sorry, what?
What if they peeled?
Add a peeler,
Oh,
so
okay.
add a backwards or add a down defender. Add a down defender included, just for stats, included the cut shot and the swing.
Mm,
Um, so basically any shot at a standing down defender into their half of the court. Out of those, what do you think the most effective shot was, percentage wise?
are you gonna say high line? Wow.
Yep. Um,
Wow.
Part of that, I think, is just a lot of the teams we play is they're very hard into that angle. And their solution to the high over is usually to run a 4.
Hmm,
Most teams, on average. Some teams will peel. Some teams will have the defender sit a little bit more middle. But generally speaking, a lot of teams' solution to the high over is to just move their blocker and put the defender on the high line and hope that they trick you.
mm,
And if you see that, well, then high angle. So
yeah.
the high over the block was the most effective, statistically speaking, attack in the top 10 Division One.
Hmm,
Not every match. I would say I started about 20 matches, about that,
wow.
somewhere in that range. Second most effective was I can't remember now. It was either the on two or the swing at a puller. And then
Huh.
but distinctly the least effective attack was at a down defender.
I wanna see the
No,
separation between hard cross and cut shot. I think hard
um,
cross is too easy, on the in the women's game, but cut shot, I feel like if you're nasty with it, I don't know.
well, so I would agree with you. If you choose the cut shot at the right ball, aka let's say you've established the high line, you've done the high line, 2 times, 3 times, and now the defender's leaning that way. You get that kind of inside, a little bit tighter set where that cut shot drops fast.
Mm,
Then it's a yes for me. Um, but what we were doing before I did the kind of hitting stats is we were cut shotting just to cut shot, cut shotting
oh,
just because it looked cool. I don't know. I shouldn't say that. I love my girls. They're wonderful.
yeah. Well, maybe
uh,
it's too arky, that's
mhm,
where the player is already facing. They're already facing forward.
mhm,
So if you put any arc on it, like
mhm,
cloth right now, sure, it's always easy to point at the like world's best current players. But
mhm,
when you see Taryn go up and hit a quote unquote cut shot, she hits it the way a cut shot is meant to be hit. There
mhm,
is zero arc. No like little spinny stuff. Gets
mhm,
high, slaps it down. Is every human capable of doing that? No. But if more people could stop putting arc onto their cut shot and imagining that a cut shot goes kind of up and then falls down over the net.
Mhm.
If you can reach high and get it to go sharp down off of your hand, it's the best version of a cut shot. And if you can't do it at that moment, then you can't hit that cut shot.
Oh, for sure. And I will clarify that to say that because it's a time function, like you
Mm,
said, it's a how fast can you get the ball to the sand? Historically, GCU, we haven't had the tallest players. So, we're dealing with a geometry problem. We're
Phoenix
not
water
up
is terrible.
as high as a Terran cloth is, right?
Mm,
So if we're not doing the cut shot at the right time, maybe a little bit more of an inside set, a little bit tighter to the net, we're not getting the ball to the sand fast enough to beat the defender.
sure.
Teams actually scored on the cut shot a lot against us. We didn't score a lot against them.
Okay.
So that's certainly because I watched all matches of us. Maybe that influenced my stats. But generally
Yeah.
speaking,
Yeah. True. Yeah.
we
Sometimes
also,
you'll set one teams and you get a statistical set, but it might not be a look at the entire country of like if you
Mhm,
took stats on just GCU and you took stats on the entire country or the entire world, what shot is the most effective? Maybe for a different team because of the way you
mhm,
practice or whatever. It's not a perfect experiment, but
definitely.
it's important to look at it and at least it gives you guidelines to make a guess, move
Mhm,
on it, and then decide if you're right or wrong.
yeah.
Instead
I
of just
include
we'll do whatever.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And I would say so 50% of the stats that I took are GCU stats,
Mm,
and 50% are our opponents. But our percentages did hold true for them as well.
cool.
So who knows, What am I but a lowly accountant? Just applying my skill sets to the
Just
beach
living
game.
your life in Excel sheets. I think it's so funny that you don't have an app that does it for you. I know a few coaches are using Huddle.
Mhm,
Data Volley, I think, is trying to be better with indoor. Like I know Jordan Chang used Data Volley, but he finagled it so that it became beach.
mhm,
Um, I don't know if they've. I hope they have good efficient stat keeping things,
mhm.
um, apps. But anyway, do you have? I have one question.
Mhm.
Blocker peel percentage.
Okay.
What percentage of the time do you think women in the college game are peeling right now? And I know
Mm,
that it is situation by situation, but still there are lots of in-system sets that I see that are flawless and
mhm,
they're peeling and I think they should. I think way more athletes, everybody from who is under open
mhm,
should be peeling way more.
mhm.
But what percentage do you think players peel in terms of swings versus defense?
I mean, I think anytime you have a not in system pass, you should be looking to peel. So I would put an addendum on that. Anytime you make them pass bad,
Mm,
get on out unless it's over. That's something we focus a lot on. Uh, Kristen Rohr's a great puller herself. She was fantastic at it, and we spend a lot of time with our blockers working on how to get off the net and still do something great up here. Because two down defense is a lot better than one down defense.
I completely agree. I completely agree. And I still see 5'5", 50-year-old women who are throwing their, I'm not even gonna call them hands, throwing their fingers up there above the net. It's like you're
Yeah.
not really taking up much space here.
Yeah.
So yeah, we spend a lot of time as like, no, you're not a blocker, but you are a net protector. So you hover around that 10-foot line. You make sure there's no oversets, and you don't want to
Mhm,
lose points on the other team's mistake. But get out of there.
mhm. Definitely. We say our kind of rule of thumb is blockers, if you believe you're going to block the ball, then stay up and block the ball. If you don't believe you're going to block the ball, there's no point in you being up there. If that means you're just pulling to the cut, that's fine. At least you've taken something away.
Sure.
Um, but if you're just jumping just to jump, you're not serving your defense much.
Much. Yeah.
Well,
Uh,
it's a pretty rare scenario where you stay up for no reason other than to just be in the hitter's head. Maybe if the blocker blocks the hitter a few times, maybe if you're actually like in that attacker's head, then it's like, okay, yeah, we're gonna keep staying and you're just gonna jump around and we're gonna use our defender to scoop up any easy shots because we know they're not gonna swing anymore. But it's a pretty rare scenario where that happens.
Do you think the passes and the sets should be lower with the frequency of peels um, in the women's game to be able to hit at a blocker before they even come close to getting set? Would there be an advantage or a strategy there? I'm just thinking, like how am I going to beat a peeler? Well, if I can get on the ball quicker and get the ball on them before they're even stopped, and I have the
Mhm.
advantage. So maybe if someone's peeling on me a lot, I'd like to run a quick set or two.
Yeah, we have a play set for that. Again, going back to my point before about how we haven't been the biggest team historically,
Hmm.
you got to find ways to neutralize larger blocks. So we like to run what's called a be quick in those scenarios, which is a normal set, but just lower and space off the net. Because what we want to bait that blocker into is a bad stay or a bad pull because they have less time to decide.
Ooh.
And because that set is now off the net, um, that gives you again, it gives you a geometry advantage. If the set's off the net and the blocker stays, now you have more room to go over them.
Hmm.
If the set's off the net and the blocker pulls, well, it doesn't matter because the set's shorter, so they have less time to get back. So then
Sure.
you have
You
more
can just
time
accelerate it to the deep.
now, or even do a high line still. We talk about presets a lot. Okay, we're going to run a be quick, and we're going to preset that we're going to hit this ball high line because we know in most scenarios, based on what the other team has historically done against us, that's going to be a high percentage shot. We're going to score, or at worst, they're going to be in a bad transition scenario, and we're going to get a free ball back.
I like that. That goes. Well, I like it because it matches what I'm currently doing. Where it's like, okay, we're going into this point and we're hitting a certain shot. So
Mhm,
you design the set and the pass and the set
mhm,
to so that you can hit that shot and so that you want to hit that shot. It's not we're
mhm,
gonna hit that shot and then you don't change anything else. It's a little bit layered deeper. Like I know that I have an effective shot. I know the situation that they're gonna want to put us in. So how do I create the best version of this? And sometimes it's a lower, sometimes it's a higher set,
mhm,
sometimes it's inside, sometimes it's outside. But people can design their offense
mhm.
so that you can hit a certain shot more effectively.
Definitely. And we try to do, going back to what we were saying about everyone's got a bad passing angle. Um, everyone's defense breaks down at a certain point on a certain set. So we try to be really good at 2 to 3 swings in a multitude of zones
Okay.
as attackers. Because again, we're not the biggest, most physical team. We're getting bigger. We're getting more physical. We got some really nice athletes. Um, but we're still missing a few inches compared to some other teams. USC can get out there and say, okay, we're going to hit hard and harder angle, and then we're going to throw in some high lines, and then maybe have one or two, shots on top of that. But they can do that philosophy and be really successful with it because they have some really large, competent players. They just had a lot of talent on that squad.
No.
Um, we didn't have as big of players, and that's fine. The beach game can certainly neutralize that. But our whole philosophy is that okay, if it will be very difficult for us to be successful with that philosophy. So what can we be successful at? Well, we can be successful at running from multitude of zones along the net and figure out what the other team isn't great at defending. And then within each zone, we try to be really good at 2 to 3 shots. So that way we go into a match, we say, okay, this program or this team really struggles when the ball's in this zone. Okay, we're looking to run out of this zone, and we don't need to have a bunch of shots in that zone. To your point, we just need to have 2, maybe 3.
Mm. I certain swings work more consistently from certain locations.
Mhm.
You know,
Definitely.
um, And maybe that sounds obvious. Well, like, yeah, if you're off, you're not going to hit, hard cross because it's
Mhm,
too easy. But still, even when you're in the middle versus
mhm,
outside, like there are certain things that you just shouldn't continue to do. The
mhm,
further off you are, probably you're going to have to add more arc to that cut shot. And when people are
mhm,
off and then they try to hit a cut shot, yeah, that's going to work against somebody who's super slow.
mhm,
But once you get anybody with strength and athleticism,
mhm.
they're going to pick that up.
Definitely.
Yeah, I always get like uh, the players who are beginners who get beat on short balls. Like, well, if I peel, they always beat me short. And my answer, I kind of sound like a jerk, but it's you have to be stronger and faster.
Yeah.
And there is a limit to the number of plays you can make if your
Mhm,
physicality isn't there, and vice
mhm.
versa. Your capability of making plays increases with your speed and strength because you can take more
Definitely.
powerful steps quicker.
Mhm.
So if you're struggling to get a shot, it's not always like a strategy thing. It's your strategy should be go to the damn gym.
I've told a player or two that, and to their credit, they've done it. So,
That's it.
um, yeah, but interestingly enough, I think the beach game it's so easy to score in because you're in the sand. Because you only have two people.
People just rolled
Sometimes
their
you just
eyes at
have
you.
two people
The
there.
thousands of people listening just rolled their eyes at you. It's
Sorry,
so,
I'm
so
sorry.
stupid.
But I mean, it is. If you think about it from a geometry perspective, if you have the ability to put the ball where you want on the
Mhm.
court, there's a lot of open sand. There's probably six different zones you can put the ball in. It's four corners, middle front, and middle back,
Mm.
where if you put it in any of those zones, it's very difficult to dig successfully,
Yeah,
right? So if you have the control to do it and you can hit those six zones, well, there's only two people. They can't cover, at best, they're covering two to four of the
yeah.
zones. So if you can figure out what's going on the other side and have the control to put the ball in a spot, that way, I guess that's what I mean by it's really easy to score in the game. It obviously takes confidence. Sorry, everyone watching. Don't mean to sound judgy. Um, if you have the confidence, the skill set, the physicality to do it, then that's why the side out percentages are so high in the beach game.
Mm.
Even at the highest levels.
I think
If you're
people
hitting,
ignore that middle back.
yes.
For like hard driven, especially.
Mhm,
I wasn't introduced to the high hard seam
mhm,
maybe until I was like 31 when I moved out here and I finally started
okay,
training with the USA team. You know,
mhm,
that was when it was like, well, yeah, just, hit a skinnier cross. Don't hit right at them. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, because I knew about sharp cross. I had that from the right side, just chop
yeah,
it down outside them. But then you see Jake Gibb, you watch him long enough,
mhm,
and it's just he aims for high middle
mhm,
so consistently. And then there is space in between the blocker and the defender where you can abuse that. But I think people think about cross that, they do a vanilla generic cross
mhm.
where it just goes straight through the chest of the defender. And it's like, well, they're going to dig at least at minimum five of those.
Yeah, for sure.
Got to make a move.
I've had a few life chats with some of our players. I think our not I think I know our one's defender, Naya Evans. She really loved to try and swing straight through the down defender. And I said, "Look, Anaya, you weigh like a buck 30. Like, you're pretty ripped, you're pretty strong, but it's really difficult to blow through someone who's standing in the corner.
Yeah, you
You
actually
know,
can't knock somebody down with a volleyball.
Yes, there are very few people who can hit a ball hard enough where it goes off their chest
Yeah,
and goes up there. And so then when she started, hitting away from that down defender, she saw her side out percentages improve hugely. Um,
that was the same for me. It was like a quick increase in hitting percentage
mhm.
as soon as I learned how to snap a quick ball in the middle, even when there was a blocker up. That
Oh,
skinny
definitely.
seam. Yeah,
Well, because you think about it from a geometry perspective, how do you dig that ball? I think who else? Katie Spieler actually has a great high deep middle back ball. Played against her once. good job by her. She won and scored in that spot. Um, but it's because it's high and behind you. The only way you dig that ball is if you stand closer to it. If you stand closer to it, well, now you're giving up
Sharp angle. Yeah.
anything in the other direction. So it goes back to my point that if you have the ability to stay in system and can put the ball in a multitude of zones, then it's easy to side out from that perspective. Um, so yeah, she's 5'5", jumps pretty well, sides out pretty good.
Yeah, it's always so funny. You're just like, well, I'm too short X. I'm too short X.
Mhm.
You just need a different skill set.
Yeah,
That's
you just
it.
have to
Just
be
don't look
excellent.
at, Alex Kleiman and try to model her game. Don't look at Tara Cloth and try to
Mhm.
model her game. Like, you're short, so what are you going to be good at? And just exploit the hell out of the things that you can be good at, and find an offense, like you said. Like, if you're shorter and so you can't bang, get somebody to peel on you,
Mhm.
but do it so that they don't have time, and then know the shot that you're going for when they do it, and then you can still beat that peeling blocker.
Mhm.
Casey Jennings, you when Ryan Doherty, 7-1 Ryan Doherty, when he was up there, he used to try to get Ryan to peel by having the set at 10 feet off, so that Ryan would be tempted to peel, and he knew that, like, his block was more of a threat than his actual hands defense.
Mhm.
So he would get him to peel and then snap quick at his head,
Mhm.
um, just by having an offset. And he found, that's Casey Jenner is 6'2", so 10. That's an 11-inch deficit that he had, but he found a system and a
Mhm.
way to overcome that.
Definitely. I think anytime you can figure out what your opponents are not good at and exploit it, you're probably winning the game, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Uh, I I have practice in 14 minutes, so
Right.
I've got two last questions for you.
Okay.
Number one,
Mhm.
is there anything that you've learned back in the day as a player that you do not coach or you don't think should be coached anymore? Something that was a flip for you from beginning to end, beginning to now.
Oh, that's a tough one. It shouldn't be coached anymore?
Yeah, what did you learn that you're like, that doesn't actually work in the real world?
Probably being, emotionally really high, I would
Oh,
say. I think when I was younger, and I don't know, maybe I probably didn't have coaches who said this. This was probably just like an Abraism where I was like, "Oh, I know the most. This is what I'm gonna do," because I was unfortunately one of those players. Sorry to everyone who has ever coached me. Um, I think I thought I was playing my best when I was emotionally very high. And reality is I was playing my best when I was emotionally within average, but I was tactically at 100%. When I was sitting back there and counting what was going on, counting how many times I'd done this, how many times I'd done that, how many times they had done this, how many times they had done that, that's when I was playing at my best.
hmm,
So I really try to teach my players that emotional management is at least a third of the game,
yeah.
if not more. I spend on my walk and talks and my timeouts and my in between sets. Even the players that are really good at managing emotions, I would say I spend about a third of my time with them,
Do you
just
think that
trying to
some
get them within
people
average.
do you think that there are people that perform well when they are hyped, and that there are people that perform well when they're in that middle ground? Because I've gone to both ends of the spectrum. I used to be
Mhm,
all hype. Like, I guess,
mhm,
like most college kids, you come out there, you're on the stand, you're like flexing and showing off for the fans and everything. And
mhm,
I would let my emotion show. A lot of times I was completely
mhm.
under control under the surface. So a lot of people like thought I was a hothead, but I would explain to
Yeah.
my partners, like, I'm gonna go yell at this ref. It's gonna
Mhm.
seem like I'm upset. I'm fine. Just give me 5
Sure.
minutes,
Yeah.
um, and, like, underneath, I was thinking about the next point.
Mhm.
But then also, like, when I was hyped. And now that I've done some meditation and stuff like that, Uh, I just need confidence
Mhm.
and calmness. So the ability to have an increased heart rate, but not a blasting heart rate, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
being able to lower it when I feel it getting too hard. So it's like an above average heart rate that I like to sustain
Mhm.
now. And then, but there's that time where somebody has to take the big risk
Mhm.
first. You know,
Mhm.
when it's one of those back and forth matches, it's who's going to step up right now and do something harder. So there's got to be some kind of balance there. But do you think that everybody should be the calm stoic? Uh, or
No.
do some people operate at a high level when they are crazy hyped and not even able
Mhm.
to think?
I think a lot of people can perform at a very high level when they're hyped. I guess I would clarify to say that you need to revert to your mean. What you don't want to have happen is have this super high emotionally, because usually, because again, I'm a numbers person, I talk about percentages, that's usually followed by a low.
Mm,
And you don't want your graph to be this up down trajectory. You
where
want
can
it
you
to be okay,
sustain?
we're high and then we're back within our mean. But to answer, to my point, your first example you used was that while you were acting emotionally high, you were emotionally confident and calm
Mm.
inside. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with having those really high highs, as long as they're not followed by low lows.
So whatever can be sustainable for a
Hmm.
long time, and that you can, that zone that you can always play in.
Hmm.
I've had a couple partners that played well, hyped really well, but
Hmm.
when they were not hyped, they were trash.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and it's okay. Now, how do we find a balance here? Because you can't show up hyped every practice and every day, because then you're just
Hmm.
going to take different swings than you do when you're low energy on match
Hmm.
point. Um, so you have to find and really work on where where is my zone. That's so hard to discover.
Well, I agree. And to your point, that was a big wow. I call them words of wisdom. Wow.
You're so clever.
God, every girl on my GCU team who's watching me right now is just like, oh, Coach Abra. But one of my big wows after going to nationals is that while we were tactically and technically prepared to compete with the best teams in the country, I don't know that we were emotionally or what's a better word, mentally, as prepared as we could have been. I think as a coaching staff, we could have done a better job of preparing them. So our big thoughts going into the fall, which we haven't told the girls yet. So surprise, anyone who's listening, is that every Friday we compete, and normally they're like, they're competitions, but it's more like, hey, let's just work on what we've been practicing all week. This year, we're going to say, no, Fridays matter. We're going to treat Fridays as real competitions. We're going to treat Fridays as if you're playing against USC, as if you're playing against UCLA, as if we're in nationals and you're seeing that giant 20-foot scoreboard, watching the little points tick down and seeing whether your team is winning or losing.
Mm,
Because the only way to really replicate that is to do your best to replicate it. The only way to practice it is to do that. I talked to my husband, who's been to two Olympics, about this for a long time.
mm.
Because I can't imagine anything scarier than sitting in this tiny little boat at the start line of the Olympics going, oh my God, just don't mess up. And he's been there.
Yeah.
He's been to two Olympics. He's been to numerous world championships. He knows what that pressure feels like.
Mm.
So he gave me a lot of really good advice on how to handle pressure and how to, determine what your play mentality, play personality should be like. And at the end of the day, the conclusion is you just have to do your best to replicate it in practice. So
Mm.
kind of a long-winded answer, but
No,
there
but
it
that's a
is.
great answer. And like, how is there a method to discover it, to find? Because I feel myself to be quasi chameleon esque. Like,
Mhm.
I can adapt. I feel like um, I can adapt to most situations
Mhm.
and be whatever I need to be in that conversation. I'm not really that guy that's like unquestionably me, and this is how I do everything. I kind of see a
Mhm.
situation and I figure out how to get into there. So for somebody who can play hyped, who can play confident, who can play silent,
Mhm.
how would one discover what their best playing mood, mentality, etc. is? Like how do you discover your best competitive character?
I think by experience, by putting yourself in those types of situations and match scenarios that matter, and figuring out where you play best in. If you're doing it without being in practice, then look back. When I look back at I can look back at all my matches over the last 20 years and determine which matches I played best in. And it's the ones where I didn't have that roller coaster, where I had some high highs. I popped up emotionally when I needed to, but I always reverted to my mean and that internal calculator that I have that I feel like gives me an edge in matches. So that's based on history. If you're newer to the game, well, you're not going to discover it until you play enough matches to figure out when you're playing your best.
And then pay attention to it instead. I think so. We have, for anybody who's listening, betteratbeach.com/partner profile. And I'd
Mhm,
love, Abra, if you check this out and if you think that there's
mhm,
some questions that belong there. But I was
mhm,
trying to discover this on my own journey of figuring out, like, how do I meet up with partners emotionally better? How do I know
mhm,
myself as a player? And a lot of it came from, honestly, marriage counseling.
mhm,
Before we got married, we are like, no, I for sure wanted to go to a therapist, marriage counselor. I
mhm,
go, if somebody who is a lifetime coach and invests in lots of coaching. Hell yeah, I
mhm.
want coaching in marriage. Like, make me be the
Smart
best damn
man.
husband there is, you know. And there was a lot that I learned, and hopefully I'm a great husband. It's up to her, but uh, I kept translating everything to volleyball, and I was
Mhm,
like, oh, I've never done that as a partner. Oh, I've never done that. So we've got this performance kind of journal, kind of questionnaire. So if any of you are
mhm,
interested in learning about yourself as a player, it's called betteratbeach.com/partner profile. And it's got a few questions. One of them, like it says, what are your trigger words? Like, what
mhm.
do you never want to hear ever out of your partner? How do
Yeah.
you want your energy when you're starting a
Mhm,
match? And then after the matches, it'll make you write down, hey, what was your energy level? Describe
mhm,
with one adjective your mood, and then describe what you rated your performance level at. And I
mhm,
think that writing it down instead of looking back, because we always kind of associate memories in a hazy way, it's a good start. But I think writing it down and saying, what was your energy today?
mhm,
What was your mood? And what was your self-assessed performance level?
mhm.
And then you can really start to hone in on it.
No, I think that's great. I think that's a great tool. I'll definitely check it out, see if that's something we can utilize with our players. Because for me personally, I'm gifted in that I have a memory like a steel trap, for better and for worse. I forget nothing. Forgive easily, forget nothing. Um, so it's easy for me to go back and remember things, but
Yeah.
I think it would be a lot better to be able to contemporaneously sit down and right after a match write down
Yeah.
how I felt. And I don't really want to ask my partners what they felt
It's so uncomfortable.
because
So
I'd say
uncomfortable.
terrible
Yeah.
things. But
Yeah, but like, check it out, betterbeach.com/partner
yeah,
profile. It's free. It's not anything. It's something that I'm working on that I think is
oh,
going to be very important for a lot of players, coaches, people.
yeah,
But it's very
that's
much in its
great.
its rough draft. So if you want to check it out, give it to your players. I ran through it with um, University of Utah. Uh,
Mhm.
I ran it with their players, just a live
Mhm.
scenario, and I had them write some things down, and their coaches really enjoyed it.
Nice.
So I want to see what you think about it. And anybody at
Mhm.
home listening, betterbeach.com/partner profile. Check it out.
Mhm.
See if you like it and if you can answer some questions about yourself and your partner.
Yeah, that'd be great for sure.
Yeah. Well, Abra, I have to sprint now. So,
Okay. Good luck.
thank you. Uh, Dude, thank you so much for your
Oh,
time.
no,
This was awesome. It was good catching up with you again.
for sure.
Um,
Same here.
yeah. And good luck next year and this summer. and on the recruiting trail and in your Excel sheets.
Yeah, I got to figure out what stats I want to do this summer. I haven't quite decided. I think I might want to circle back and redo my serving and redo my attacking,
Mm,
just to see if the team really has moved forward, like in my very biased opinion, think they have.
mm. I'd
So,
also like to see uh, hitting percentages from locations on the net.
mhm.
Like
Okay.
if you divide the net into 5 zones: outside,
Mhm,
push, middle, push, outside.
mhm,
I want to really know where the majority of humans are most efficient from, and
mhm,
maybe where certain unique players are as well.
mhm.
But
Yeah,
well,
that'd be
I've
a
always
good
been
one.
interested in that. Like, are people always hitting from the wrong location? You know.
I'll do it. 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Um, one of our big wows this year was running what we called a middle set, staying on your side of the court, but kicking in and
Hmm.
running out of the middle. I saw Kara Bolger, the German
Carla.
women's
Yep.
Carla.
Yep.
She's my spirit animal. I really need to learn
She's
how to
so
pronounce
cool.
her
She's
name.
such a cool human. Oh,
But
yep.
she wrecked house at the Olympics by running that middle set and either booping back over the line, ripping it into that shorter hard angle,
Hmm.
or waiting for them to pull and just lighten them up. Um, so that was a set that we added to our repertoire this year, and we found was really successful against a lot of programs. So
It's so tough on the defense to know what to do in the middle. How much
yeah.
line do I take up? Should we like stay where we are? Are we supposed to switch now? Yeah,
Mhm,
I think it's confusing if you can have a good offensive plan to hit out of the middle. Yeah.
definitely. So
All right,
here's my 30 seconds.
that'll be for the
That's
next
what I
episode.
practice.
Yeah. All right, Abra. Hey, thank you so much. Good luck, guys. If you are interested in catching up with Abra, her profile, her Instagram profile, if you want to see a bunch of pictures of her family and some volleyball, is on our show notes, as well as links to her coaching bio and Grand Canyon University beach volleyball page. Follow along, support them, and see what she's doing.
Yeah. Go up. Where's the dang it? Go Lopes. That was
Awesome.
hideous. I'm embarrassed.
You're good. Go Lopes. I'm with you.
All right. Thanks, Mark.
All right, Abra. Have a great one.
You too. Bye.
Bye.